The start of the next Boston Bruins season, believe it or not, is not too far away. And with the dust settling on free agency, I wanted to take this opportunity to give my predictions on what the Boston Bruins opening night roster will look like with the players they have available today. So buckle up, Bruins fans. I'm here to give you the latest info on your beloved Boston Bruins. If you've been liking my Bruins content, please leave me a like and subscribe. If you've already done so, thank you, and let's get into it. We're going to start off with the line combos. And believe it or not, I'm going to shoot through the hip here. I'm going to have the roster in front of me. I'm going to give you out my line combos, but I'm going to start from the back end. But I'm also going to give you a little tweak here because I think it's almost impossible to predict exactly what the line combo will look like, but I'm going to give you some guys that I think might be filling in on these spots and give you my reasoning behind this. I'm only going to be using the players that I have available today. I'm not going to talk about anything they could possibly do in the future because at this point, we don't know. I'm going to start at the back end, and that's your goaltenders. And probably the most controversial roster spot on this whole Boston Bruins team. I'm probably going to say the most obvious thing here that Jeremy Swayman will be the starting goalie for the Boston Bruins next year. It's no secret he didn't have a good year. He had a terrible year last year. In 58 games with the Boston Bruins last year, he got 22 wins with a .311 goals against average and an .892 save percentage. That's not the numbers of a starting goalie, and to be totally honest, I think the loss of Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy paid a big reason for his lack of numbers and lack of success for the Boston Bruins. You had a guy like Mason Lowry playing a ton of minutes last year when he shouldn't have. I'm not giving excuses to why Swayman played terrible, because he did. And I will get into Jonas Korpisalo, who I think will also be the backup, who I also thought played terrible. I'm just giving my reasoning why I think he will have a bounce back year, especially because of how he played over in the World Championship for Team USA. He was lights out there, which, again, he had good players in front of him. I know a lot of people say, well, the goalie needs to steal the show. He did a couple times, but I'm talking a couple times, like maybe 2 games the whole season and more in the latter half of the year. I think holding out in training camp last year was obviously a huge issue. When a goalie doesn't get to go to training camp, he's behind. The Bruins' choices on how they played him last year, still suspect to me. Bit weird on how they would leave him in when he's already got 5 goals against, so on and so forth, or even when Korpisalo was playing well, they don't throw him in net. I have way too many conspiracy theories about how Jeremy Swayman was used by the Boston Bruins last year that at this point it really doesn't matter. The fact of the matter was he stunk. The team stunk, and he needs to be better. And if he's not better next season, the Bruins aren't making the playoffs. Just plain and simple. But at the end of the day, he's the Boston Bruins starting goalie on day 1 unless he's injured. That's what's going to happen. And now we have our backup. Now, the reason why there's a little bit of controversy here is because Jonas Korpisalo is there, currently slotted as the backup, but you also have Michael DiPietro, who is signed on a one-way deal, who was your starter in Providence last year, who was amazing in Providence last year. Korpisalo, you can nail me in the comments as much as you want. He wasn't good. Swayman was terrible, but saying that Korpisalo was good compared to Swayman, sure, you got me there. He beat him by like a percentage here and there. Korpisalo was absolutely terrible for the Boston Bruins last year. If it wasn't for Jeremy Swayman's bad season, we would say Korpisalo was one of the worst goalies again in the NHL. He was the year before. He consistently hasn't been a good goalie since he was in LA. He just hasn't been that good. It's just facts of the matter. He's got 3 more years on his deal, and it's not that big of a deal if the Bruins do buy him out. If they bought him out, they would actually get a 75% cap savings. His actual cap hit this year would be $541,000, and then the next year would be $1.2 million. The next year after that would be 1.6, and then it's 916,000, 916,000, 916,000, all the way to 2030, 31. I'm not saying the Bruins are going to buy him out. I'm just saying this is what they could have an option. If DiPietro steals the show in training camp, he's going to get that spot. Sweeney has said over and over again that he's going to give people chances, and I'm going to try and believe him in there. He's lied in the past. That's why I'm going to get into the roster later, where I'm just like, I don't know how other players are even going to have a chance to make this team considering the signings they made over the offseason. But I do think if DiPietro is better, he will take that backup role in Boston, and Korpisalo will be put on waivers. And unfortunately, I seriously doubt any team's going to claim him, and then he's going to be your goalie in Providence. Just it is what it is at this point. DiPietro is never going to be the starter, though. It's a lot like last season when a lot of people thought Brandon Bussi could be the starting goalie, and I'll still never understand that one. Trade Swayman, Bussi's going to be the starter. That still to this day makes no sense, but DiPietro still also doesn't make sense to be a starting goalie. I think he can be a very good goalie as a backup. And again, I think Korpisalo can be decent as a backup, but I think the Bruins sheltered him last year. His starts were against really bad teams last season. He rarely played against good teams. And even when he did play some good games, they still sat him and put Swayman back in the net. Swayman played against the best teams in the league, and Korpisalo didn't. These are just facts if you look at where and who he played last season. Can Korpisalo have a bounce back year? I hope so. But again, it's also going to matter the team in front of him. Korpisalo also was in net with terrible defense in front of him. Hopefully, Nikita Zadorov spends less time in the box. With a healthy McAvoy and a Lindholm, you're not going to have Mason Lohrei out there in all these high-pressure situations, and he's going to go against lesser opponents, and he's going to get more time to develop. These are just facts, and hopefully this works out for the Boston Bruins. But at this point, your starting goalie is Jeremy Swayman, and your backup is Joonas Korpisalo. Now, let's get into the defensive pairings. I'm going to start at the bottom here, and I think your top left D on your third pair is going to be Mason Lohrei, and I think that's not a bad thing. I think that's going to help him out. He's not going to have as much ice time as he had previously, but I think that it's going to help him develop. He's got so much offensive potential, and I understand so many people dog him for his stats, especially his plus minus. Me personally, I think plus minus is a very team stat. I think that the plus minus has a lot to do with who you're playing with, and the Boston Bruins, they weren't good last year. Just plain and simple. For Mason Lohrei, in 77 games, he got 5 goals, 28 assists for 33 points. That's very good for an offensive defenseman for his age. I think he's going to get better, but I think playing on that third pair is going to help him out as well. And also maybe it'll get the fans off his back a little bit. As of right now, I think the right side is very weak for the Boston Bruins, but I don't really have many options. So that's where your Andrew Peeke is going to come in. Defensive guy. Not the fastest fleet of foot, but, he's very good at boxing people out. He's very good at being responsible in his own end, and he can clear guys in front of the net. Him being paired with Lohrei, it's not the best pairing. Let's totally be honest, but it's not the worst pairing as well. I think Peeke can make up for a lot of the defensive deficiencies that Mason Lohrei has, and he can also teach him a little bit more about the game. I think also Lohrei is going to spend a lot more time watching guys like Nikita Zadorov or Hampus Lindholm play that left side in front of him, and he's going to learn the game a little bit better. But I think Peeke is going to complement him, and I don't see it that bad of a pairing. Your next pairing, you're going to have the left side is Nikita Zadorov. If he spends less time in the box, I think he's going to be extremely more effective, and I do think he's going to spend less time in the box this year. He spent a lot of time running around and trying to do everything, and especially at the beginning of the year when there wasn't injuries, he was trying to show off how big he is and, live up to this contract. When you think of the contract now, it's not that big, but decided he needed to run through a wall and try and punch everybody in the face every 2 seconds. That's not his game. He needs to be stronger in front of the net. He needs to get the puck out of the zone. He needs to be a presence in the corners. And he needs to be able to use his size to box guys out to the sides and then push them towards the boards. So keeping the puck away from in the middle there. Just get the puck out of the slot. I think Zadorov can be way more effective this season. And I'm hoping that he can just play his game. Not try to do too much, just play his game. Believe it or not, for his size, he's extremely fast. In 81 games for the Bruins last season, he got 4 goals, 18 assists for 22 points. It's not bad. At 6'6", the guy can skate. I'm okay with Zadorov. He doesn't make that much money at a $5 million cap hit, especially with the cap the way it's going to be. This ended up being a pretty sweet contract for the Boston Bruins. As long as his speed never dissipates and he can stay out of the box, Zadorov can be extremely effective, and he's a very good leader in the dressing room. On the right side with him, this is the one I think the Bruins brought back because they kind of had no choice at this point, and that's Henry Jokiharju. I probably said it wrong. I know I'm going to get lambasted in the comments. At this point, it is what it is. But right shot defenseman, he's got some offensive potential. He's more a defensive guy. I think Zadorov has more offensive upside than him. Jokiharju is what he is at this point. The Bruins, no matter what, need to upgrade on the right side, and he's not going to hurt you. He's not going to stand out. He's all right. I would love to have so many more things to say about this guy, but I really don't. Is he better than Andrew Peeke? I don't think he is, but I think Peeke needs to be down there with Mason Lohrei to protect him from his defensive deficiencies. And then your top pairing, you've got Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy. Both suffered terrible injuries last year. Hampus Lindholm pretty much missed the whole season after blocking a shot at the beginning of the year. And you could tell how much that affected the Boston Bruins. Lindholm is probably the best puck-moving defenseman. Not probably. Lindholm is the best puck-moving defenseman on the Boston Bruins. He helps get the puck out of the zone. He's pretty much the reason their power play sucked so much last year. I truly believe, because when you lose your quarterback, it's hard to come back from that. I know a lot of people want McAvoy to be this guy, but McAvoy is an extremely gifted two-way defenseman, but he is not as offensive as everybody seems to think he is. Lindholm is an offensive defenseman who actually is decent on the defensive side of the puck as well. But I think with Lindholm back there, you're going to have way better breakouts. You're going to be able to get the puck up the ice and not have the puck in your zone. Far too many times last year, the Bruins defense tried to bang the puck off the boards, pretty much gave it right back to the other team. The puck would go back into the zone, and they just couldn't get the puck out of their zone because they had nobody who could stretch the other team. You had no one that could read the other team as well as Lindholm and McAvoy to get the puck out of the zone. Mason Lohrei tried to do it all by himself, and it just didn't work out for him. I think with a healthy Lindholm and a healthy McAvoy, who will play the right side, I think the Boston Bruins defense will be that much better. When you lose two of the best defensemen you have, I don't know how you expect the team to be successful. It's just not going to work. So my top pair is going to be Lindholm and McAvoy for now. I don't see how you can have Peak or Yuki Hiro on that right side on the top pair with Lindholm. And maybe at some point they're going to put Zadorov with Charlie McAvoy. They might move Lindholm down to that second pair and they'll just go back and forth. But Zadorov McAvoy, I thought, was terrible last year, and I just can't get back to it. You have two people playing the same way. I think Lindholm allows McAvoy to not have to do everything. It allows McAvoy to make those big hits. It allows McAvoy to play that defensive game and be that shutdown guy that he can be, because McAvoy is one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league when he wants to be. As much as people want to think McAvoy is not one of the elite defenders in the league, sorry to burst your bubble, almost everybody else seems to think so. A lot of Bruins fans don't. I think it's because we've been so spoiled here in Boston. Everybody wants McAvoy to be Ray Bourque. Well, that's not what he is. McAvoy is not Ray Bourque. He's more of a two-way guy. Ray Bourque is more offensive than he was defensive. He was good defensively, but he was way more of an offensive defenseman. I think if you put Lindholm and McAvoy together, there's your Ray Bourque. But McAvoy is going to be able to still be able to carry the puck and be able to be offensive, but he's not going to be leaned on as much as he needs to, like he was last year until he was injured at the Four Nations. So I think all in all, the Bruins defense, I would rate them as a B. And as of right now, Jordan Harris is that seventh defenseman. I don't know where he fits in as well. I'm hoping he can make some impact in training camp. And my guess is the Bruins might invite somebody that plays the right side as the training camp invitee. We'll see. Just look up any guy that's from the Boston area, and maybe that's the guy. A little part of me thinks it's going to be Grzelcyk, but he's a left shot, and that's just not what they need. So the Bruins probably will invite someone to camp, but hopefully it's a defenseman. This brings me to the forwards. I will get to the top line. I think actually, you know what? I'm going to start at the top line because I think it's the easiest. You've got Morgan Geekie on the left, Elias Lindholm at center, and David Pastrnak at right wing. David Pastrnak is one of the best right wingers in the NHL, one of the best goal scorers in the NHL, had an amazing season last year. In 82 games, he got 43 goals, 63 assists for 106 points. Pastrnak was a leader on and off the ice for the Boston Bruins, especially after McAvoy went down in the Four Nations. Pastrnak stood out as a true leader for the Boston Bruins, and then they trade Brad Marchand, and Pastrnak steps up even more. At the end of the season, the Geekie, Lindholm, Pastrnak line was a very good line for the Boston Bruins. Lindholm played great in the World Championship. I'm hoping Geekie can repeat some of his success from last year. He's only at $5.5 million. He got 33 goals, 24 assists, and 57 points. I don't see how he doesn't get another 30-goal season, especially playing on that line. And as long as that line can gel, they weren't gelling at the beginning of the year, but I think starting the season, starting training camp, and getting more reps together and having the confidence in each other, I think that can be a very good line. Lindholm isn't Patrice Bergeron, so this year at least we won't be hearing everybody saying, oh, he's Patrice Bergeron-like. I don't think he is. I think he's a defensive center with some offensive upside. I think he's going to know his role this season, be more pass first, get the puck to Pastrnak, get the puck to Geekie, be good in front of the net, be good on the zone entries, be good on the forecheck, be good on the back check. I think Lindholm will play that position very well for them. He's able to keep up with Pastrnak and Geekie. That line's going to be fine. Is it the best top line in the NHL? No, not by any means. I think Lindholm's perfect position would be 2C on most teams, on most very good teams. But I think Lindholm can be sufficient enough to be the 1C for the Boston Bruins next season. I have zero issues with this top line at all. Barring any injuries, this line will be fine. This is where it gets interesting with the Boston Bruins, because from line 2 to line 4, it's anybody's guess at this point. I think one of the only thing that's being consistent for me is Pavel Zacha on that left side. And for now, I've got Casey Middlestat as your second line center. I think Middlestat has a lot to prove next season. Let's be honest here. He's got 2 years left at $5.7 million in 63 games last season for the Colorado Avalanche. He got 11 goals, 23 assists, and 34 points. In the 18 games he played for the Boston Bruins, he got 4 goals, 2 assists, and 6 points. He came to a team that was terrible last year, so I'm going to give him a pass. Middlestat has so much potential, and he's that guy everybody keeps saying. So my hope is the Bruins find another Pavel Zacha here. When the Bruins brought over Pavel Zacha from the New Jersey Devils, he was struggling there, and Casey Middlestat has struggled since leaving Buffalo. So hopefully, he's 6'1", but he's not the fastest guy, but he can play wing and he can play center. I think Middlestat's game needs to be more pass first, needs to control his zone entries, and because he can slow down plays and use Zacha's offensive abilities and smarts more. I think Casey Middlestat needs to pass the puck more. And that brings me to the right side, because I've seen a lot of people pencil in Victor Arvidsson right off the bat, and I don't think that's possibly the case. I actually think second line right wing can be Matthew Poitras. He spent a ton of the season last year in the AHL and played great for the Providence Bruins. He has made the Bruins out of camp the last 2 seasons. He has bulked up the last 2 seasons. Everybody keeps saying he needs to get better. I've said in my last video, he just needs to keep his head on a swivel a little bit more, but I think that he adds way more speed and more offense than Victor Arvidsson. Victor Arvidsson isn't slow, but he isn't fast when compared to Matthew Poitras, who has a ton more speed. A lot of people say Matthew Poitras at 5'11" is too small. I'm not going to have this conversation anymore because I just think it doesn't even make any sense at this point. We're okay with Brad Marchand, who was at 5'9", but for somehow, Matthew Poitras, who's the same height as Sidney Crosby, by the way, is all of a sudden too small to play the game. That's not how the game works anymore. We'll get into the thugs that we have in the bottom 6 that can help, but I think Matthew Poitras would complement the line more. That's not saying that he's definitely going to be making, but for right now, that's where I've slotted Matthew Poitras. I've slotted him as your second line right wing over Victor Arvidsson. I think Victor Arvidsson has proven himself in the NHL, and I think maybe one day he can get back to those goal totals that he's gotten in previous years when he was playing in Nashville and such. But I think if Matthew Poitras is going to make this hockey club out of camp, it's going to be in the top 6, and I just don't think he's going to be center. I think Middlestat will be center. So I think you put Poitras on the right wing and you test it out. See what happens. As I said before, I don't think the Boston Bruins are going to be a Stanley Cup contender next year. Maybe they make a wild card spot, but it doesn't hurt. You have a guy like Poitras who has so much offensive upside, so much offensive ability. Why not try him in your top 6 on that right side? He adds so much speed to that line. So then you have a line of Zacha, Middlestat, and Poitras, where you have a guy with speed and all offensive creativity. You have a guy like Middlestat who's able to slow the play down. He's good on his draws. And then you have a guy like Zacha who has such a strong two-way game, but also has a pretty deceptive shot. So you have a lot of intangibles to that line. Hopefully they could play together. But right now, that's my guess. If not, it will be Victor Arvidsson. But I'm hoping it's Matthew Poitras. I just think that gives more to your top 6. That brings me to my bottom 6 and my third line to start. I've got Fraser Minten as my third line center. Boston had him in at the end of the year to be that guy. He is an extremely good two-way player. He's currently right now practicing in the offseason with his best buddies, Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard. I think he's your third line center of the future. I think he starts as your third line center. He needs to be stronger at his faceoffs, but I think he has so many intangibles that he can lead that line and be that guy. The Bruins having him in at the end of the year and having him in the team photo says a lot to me. And I think, without a doubt, Fraser Minten is your third line center to start next season. This goes over to my left wing. I think the third line is the most interchangeable line there is, because I think a lot of people keep putting Tanner Jeannot there. I think Tanner Jeannot will be on the fourth line, but maybe he's on the third line. The bottom 6 is so interchangeable. I don't think it is down the middle, but I think on the wings it's very interchangeable. I think Michael Eyssimont actually will be your third line left winger, and Victor Arvidsson and Blumel will actually fight it out for that third line right wing spot. I think in the end, Arvidsson wins out. I think a lot of these, that's the issue, the Boston Bruins offseason. They signed a lot of guys that fill in that bottom 6 role. And I think, unfortunately, Lush Mellis gets the short end of the stick here, because I don't think he's better than Matthew Poitras, and I think he's going to have a hard time getting in the top 6 unless you're moving guys out to make space for him. I think he probably starts in Providence, and that's why I haven't mentioned his name just yet. I know the guy had an amazing time in Providence. He was amazing in the World Championship. I just think they probably want him to have a little bit more seasoning. I hope he makes the team, and, they said that they're going to move guys around if they makes the team, but if he makes the team, where's he going to play? That's my issue. He played very well with Matthew Poitras, so maybe, but I just think Lush Mellis starts the season in Providence, and that's why I think Easymont will be your possible third-line left winger, Fraser Minton on the right side, and then Victor Arvidsson is your third-line right winger. I think Lumel, tons of speed, he can score, but probably starts the year in Providence, but he could be that dark horse to make the team everybody wants to talk about. I think I want to see more from the kid, but right now I'd have a line of Easymont who, as Don Sweeney put it, everybody hates to play against him. He's that pest. He's got speed. He's hard on the forecheck, hard on the back check. He's that guy. And then you have Fraser Minton, and then you have Victor Arvidsson, who can score some goals and is that leadership on that line. I just like the sound of that line, and that brings me to my fourth line, where I've got Tanner Jeannot, that guy that I love so much, on that fourth line, Sean Corrali at center, and Mark Kastelik is your right winger, meaning Johnny Beecher is your extra, which is not a bad thing. You now have Corrali and Kastelik, who both can play center. I think you're not bringing in Corrali to make him your spare part. He brings some leadership into that bottom 6. And then you have Tanner Jeannot, who also I've heard is a very good locker room guy. And then you have a very strong fourth line. I'm not going to get into the Tanner Jeannot contract anymore because it's beating a dead horse. But him as a fourth line left winger is not a bad thing. He's a very strong forechecker. He can add some bite to that fourth line, and then you have him and Kastelik. They could be almost like the Bash Bros. And then you have Corrali, who is extremely responsible on both ends of the ice. He's good at the draws. We know what he brings to the game. And then you can move him in and out with his age and have Johnny Beecher fill in that role, because Beecher is extremely good on the PK and can win a lot of draws. But Corrali is a little bit better. He's just an older version of Beecher with a little bit more speed. But I think that kind of levels out your lines. I'm not saying the bottom 6 is great. It's a very grindy bottom 6. And that's why I kind of hope Poitras makes this hockey club and he's up there. And if you've noticed, I haven't said Fabian Lysell. And the reason is I don't think he fits in this hockey club right now. Unfortunately, he needs to play in the top 6. He's not a bottom 6 player. I think the Providence Bruins, using him for their schedule picture the other day, they were announcing that they're bringing out their new schedule for the preseason and next year, or for season tickets, I think it was. I can't remember. I saw the ad, but Fabian Lysell was the face of this. I think Lysell will start the year in Providence, a lot like what they did with Matthew Poitras last year, where he did make the team, and then they were like, you know what? He needs a full year in Providence. I think the plan with Lysell, unless he makes that top 6, I think he starts the year in Providence. Him and Matthew Poitras will fight it out for that second line right wing, and I just think Poitras wins in the end. It leaves guys like Georgi Merkulov, who I don't think he's making this hockey club anytime soon. So if you're collecting hockey cards or anything like that, I think the Bruins just didn't want to lose the asset. He will start in Providence, and they'll maybe use him for a trade down the road. I just don't see how he fits. Some of these guys like Lysell, Poitras, and Merkulov, they're top 6 players. And if you look, your top line is set in stone. Your second line, unless you move Middlestat or Zaka, it's hard to move these guys in and out. It's just, where are you going to put them in the lineup? Unless injuries happen, right? So starting Lysell in Providence is not going to be a bad thing. Merkulov down in Providence as well. I know not everybody's going to agree with my lines. That's just where I'm at right now with my brain on what I look at the Boston Bruins and what they have, but I would love to hear from you. So, drop your comments down below. You let me know what you think the lines are going to be. It's anybody's guess at this point. That's a wrap on today's video. To stay up to date on all the news surrounding the Boston Bruins, please subscribe and drop me a like. If news breaks surrounding the Boston Bruins, be sure to check out the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, thank you, and I'll see you next time.